Welcome to episode 71 of Working Towards Our Purpose. Today's episode is going to be about self-compassion and how to have some more compassion towards yourself. But before we get into that, we are going to do our normal check-in and see where we're at today. Check in with ourselves, take a second, and see how we're feeling. Yeah, so for me, feeling pretty good. I had a good day yesterday, but if I'm thinking right now, I think a little nervous for today's episode, perhaps. But yeah, feeling not too bad. So hopefully you got a second to check in with yourself. Also, I've been thinking I'm wondering if these sort of check-ins at the beginning are helpful, because I know they're helpful for me, and I know it's always helpful for me to see where I'm at before I go into something, before I start something. But I could see how it could get a bit repetitive. So send me a message on the feedback form, workingtowardsourpurpose.com homepage. If you don't like these, or if you do like these, just let me know, and we can always adjust, because I do want to be helpful always. So if it's something that the majority doesn't like, then maybe we can rethink it. But yeah, let's get into today's episode about compassion. So I came to this topic today because I had a bit of a rough weekend emotionally, I guess. I don't know, just sort of got in a depressive episode, and it kind of lasted from Friday through Sunday, which has been one of my longer ones in recent pasts. I haven't had one that long, I guess, in a bit. So it was not fun. But I did want to talk about it, because I think that even myself, I just sort of avoid talking about it, because once with depression for me, once you start feeling better, it's you forgot that it happened, and you don't even really want to think about it or address it, because it was uncomfortable and it didn't feel good and you don't like it. So you sort of just move on. And so it started for me. So yeah, I just want to talk about it to also destigmatize it a bit too. It's normal, people have depressive episodes, suffer from depression. A lot of people do. And just want to talk about it. So it started on last Friday for me. I was sleep deprived and was trying to get stuff done, and skipped my morning routine because I thought I didn't have enough time. And I just kind of ended up not having a great day, not getting things done, not being able to be focused. And then, I have these days every now and then, and it's not that unnormal, but then it sort of bled into Saturday, and then sort of bled into Sunday. And Saturday evening and Sunday morning, I was just damn, what's going on? Just not feeling up for anything. And, mostly thinking negatively about everything that I'm doing, and just not having any hope for, all hope was sort of erased, and not positive. Just, I'm trying to describe it, but it's even you forget because you kind of just numb yourself with distractions, or TV, social media, whatever it is, and don't do much. I don't think I really got outside, didn't do my walks, none of my normal stuff that I do, I wasn't doing. So, but yeah, it was leading me to these thoughts of oh, this podcast, the YouTube channel, none of it's ever going to work out. I don't know what you're doing. You gotta do something different. So luckily Sunday evening, I was able to kind of step back from feeling like that and feeling a little bit more normal and better. And, it was because I started this new book, which I have 2 books here today that I want to talk about, but I started this new book, Resilient by Hanson. And the first chapter is about compassion and having compassion for yourself. So we'll get into that in a little bit, but that was kind of, I think, what helped me realize that I was being hard on myself, that I was having all these negative thoughts. And then I picked up this other book too, Undoing Depression by Richard O'Connor, that I had already read, but I sort of just wanted to reference it and look at a couple of the sticky notes. And yeah, it made me realize, like, when I was going through feeling, hopeless and all those sorts of negative feelings, that they kind of just come, they just kind of just flood in, and you don't really feel like you have control over it. And they all feel real in the moment. They all feel like the truth, and they all are just sort of crippling, and nothing in the moment seems like it's going to really help. But that's why, like, I really have been grateful for reading and for books, because just reading a chapter, 10, 15 pages on an idea just makes me kind of snap out of it. And I don't really like saying snap out of it, because it's not like there's something wrong with you and you need to snap out of it, but sort of more lean towards, positivity and hopefulness, and to not believe those negative thoughts. Because they both come, negative thoughts, positive thoughts, and you can kind of have your choice over which ones you think. And I don't know if you can hear that helicopter, but it's pretty loud. Bit distracting, but it will pass. And okay, so it leads me to this idea that I want to talk about. It's called automatic negative thoughts, and it's in this book, Undoing Depression. And I just want to read, like, the definition of what automatic negative thoughts are, because when I read it this morning when I was doing some research, I immediately was like, that's what I was experiencing. Like, that's what happened. Like, one or two negative things happen, and then you just automatically have this flood of negative thoughts. So automatic negative thoughts are the knee-jerk reactions that have become the default mode of thinking under stress. And it can be abbreviated as ANTS. And the author says that, he likes this abbreviation because it obviously stands for automatic negative thoughts, but it also sort of represents ants, which seem to creep up out of nowhere and spoil the picnic. So I thought that was a funny way of remembering it. And it just felt like some language to put to, like, how I was feeling. And I think that, this sort of can happen a lot if I'm not, or I'll speak for me, if I'm not aware of, like, my thoughts, like, sometimes they could become just these automatic negative thoughts. And it's sort of this learned habit that we have. And, just for example, like, sometimes, I don't know if you can resonate with this, but, like, maybe you get up in the morning and maybe you don't like what you see in the mirror. And then all of a sudden you have, like, one negative thought, and then you have another negative thought. And then all of a sudden you just made yourself feel terrible for, like, something as simple as looking in the mirror. And, it just sort of, like, puts your day on this negative trajectory that you maybe wouldn't have had otherwise. And it seems to just, like, happen so quickly and so automatically. So it was kind of reassuring to hear that, like, this is a thing that happens, and, like, people do it. It's frequent. It happens, especially with, if you suffer from depression. And it was nice to think about it in that way, because now, hopefully next time, obviously I already read that book and I already was aware of that concept, but I kind of forgot about it. But, maybe next time, if it happens again, I can sort of think of this visual representation of these ants and maybe put a little humor into it, and hopefully prevent it from spiraling out of control. But that sort of leads me into the next concept that I read about, was self-compassion, and kind of what I want to talk about today. And at the end, I'll have like one takeaway exercise that you can do to have self-compassion for yourself. But first, let's talk about what self-compassion is. And we've had episodes on self-love and stuff, but I think thinking of self-compassion, at least when I read it this time in this book on Sunday night, it sort of reshaped a little bit my thinking. So I read this one sentence here that I think kind of sums up the chapter, and it says that when we treat others with respect and caring, the best in them usually comes out. Much the same would happen if we could treat ourselves in the same way. So that sentence was just kind of impactful for me, and I think it just made me realize that I wasn't treating myself with compassion, and that if I could start to treat myself with compassion, that maybe all these negative feelings could go away. And not go away like permanently, but just like they could subside, and they don't have to be as they don't have to feel as heavy as they did. So that was in the book Resilient by Rick Hanson, and I'll link both of these in the show notes so you can find them. I just started the Resilient one, so excited to read the rest of it. But yeah, so just thinking about these ideas of like, we treat others with compassion usually, and we have no problem with that, but treating ourselves with compassion can be so much harder. And I think it's sort of like a habit. Like being able to treat others with compassion is because you've been taught to do that. Maybe a parent showed you that like that was the right thing to do. Maybe somebody else showed you that. But when we talk about ourselves, like we need to build a habit of having compassion for ourselves, or at least I need to build a habit of having compassion for myself. And there's another actually section that I want to read in here too. Sorry, a little all over the place. Let's see if I could find it. Yeah, okay. So then it was talking about like how, growing and learning how to have compassion for yourself. And it says the key to growing any psychological resource, including compassion, is to have repeated experiences of it. That gets turned into lasting changes in the neural structure or function. So basically saying that if you want to learn to have self-compassion for yourself, you have to have repeated experiences, and then you sort of can rewire your neural pathways, and it can become like a normal thing. Because a lot of us, especially those of us who suffer from mental health, have learned sort of negative habits and, learned the opposite of self-compassion. We learned the automatic negative thoughts to treat ourselves when we're feeling, under stress or vulnerable, or, we have these automatic negative thoughts. So if we can replace these automatic negative thoughts with self-compassion, then we can maybe not fall into longer periods of depression. And for me, this made a lot of sense for me. And if it resonates with you, great. If it doesn't, that's also great. But I just wanted to, share this experience because I think for me, it's common, and I'm always looking for ways to like try to be able to pull myself out of negative cycles. And these two things sort of like coincided and made sense to me. And I was like, okay, I need to replace these automatic negative thoughts with some more self-compassion, and to think about like how I can do that. And sort of, you have to retrain your brain. Like anything that you learn is over time and repetitive, just like that sentence said. And, if you think about learning anything, it takes time to learn it. Like, learning guitar, you don't just pick it up one time and you're like, okay, now I can play guitar. You have to train your brain. You have to train your fingers. You have to, get used to playing it. And muscle memory is a thing. Like, muscle memory means that you've done it so many times that your brain already knows how to do it. So, I can play a G chord, no problem. I don't even have to think about it or look at the fretboard on a guitar. But for me to think about having self-compassion for myself, that's a lot harder because I haven't practiced that. I've played guitar for, I don't know, probably almost 20 years at this point. But, yeah, like I have to practice. Like I have to practice having self-compassion. So if I want to sort of limit these automatic negative thoughts, I can replace it with self-compassion. And so that's what I want to talk about today, that concept. And if there's one thing that like I've ever done that's helped with having self-compassion, it's this one exercise that I want to get to. So this one might, it's going to be a little bit of work, and, maybe you're not ready to do it now, and that's fine. Cause, I don't expect you to to do everything, but if you're ready for it, or maybe when you're ready for it in the future, I think this exercise has been really helpful for me. So I wanted to share it. And I think I probably had done this in therapy, and it worked really well. And I've done it, a couple times. So yeah, basically what we're going to do is like get a journal out and get a piece of paper, and you're going to imagine a previous version of yourself that was like going through a really hard time. And you kind of want to imagine it as like a separate person. And, that sounds weird, but it's like, you think of like your 5-year-old self or your 10-year-old self, and now, you're not that person, but you can look at that person sort of more objectively. So the idea is to sort of think of a time in your life that was really hard and really difficult, and to just picture that person, to picture you at that age. And you want to write down like all the details that you can, like maybe it was a really hard breakup, or maybe your parents got divorced, or maybe some sort of trauma that happened in childhood or in adulthood, something that was like really hard that you went through and you can remember. And you want to just try to like write down all the details. And this is going to be hard. Like it will be difficult, and, that's okay. Because we're working through it. And I think, once you've sort of written down all the details that you can, then, and write it on paper, like journal it down. It's most helpful if you can journal it. You can do it, kind of just a thought experiment, but it's more helpful writing it down. And then the next thing that you want to do is to think about what that person needed in that moment. Like maybe you were a kid. What did 5-year-old you need when, your parents were getting divorced, or you went through this horrible trauma, or maybe it was just, a moment where you needed help and there was nobody there, or you wanted to be seen and there was nobody there to see you. To think about like what that person needed, and then to write that down. Like, what did that person need? Maybe they just needed a hug. Maybe they needed an adult to guide them and to tell them it was going to be okay. To just think about like what that person needed. And then the last thing that you want to do, you want to write that down too. Write that down in the journal. And then the last thing that you want to do is to visualize you present day, right now, giving the older version of you, the 5-year-old, giving that person what they needed. And, this is an imagination experience, but it can be really helpful and impactful to think about like giving that older version of yourself what they need. And because for me, like what it makes me do is to realize that like that kid needed something, and it wasn't necessarily their fault, and likely it wasn't their fault. And it's not to say that like you had terrible parents or whatever. Like you didn't have to go through like some major trauma for this to be helpful. It could be like just something kind of simple even, and to think of yourself as like this kid that needed something and they didn't get it, and you can give that to yourself now. And like what that is, the giving to yourself now, that is self-compassion, and it makes you feel what self-compassion feels like. So this exercise for me has like shown that to me and made me feel what self-compassion feels like. So doing this exercise one time is great, and it can help you experience what self-compassion feels like. And going back to the idea that like if we're learning something new, if we're learning self-compassion new, and this is something new for us, we need to do this multiple times, and we need to sort of internalize what it feels like, and to do it a few times to learn how to get better at it. So while you're doing this, try to like really sit with the feel. If you can get to the feeling of self-compassion, really sit with it and try to like feel it for as long as possible before it goes away. And I think that can be really helpful to try to teach yourself to have more self-compassion. And yeah, I think, it would probably be helpful for me to do this again. And I'm thinking that I'll probably do this after this episode, just for a little bit. And maybe, you know, for me, it would be a great experience to do it for like me this weekend. Like, what did I need this weekend? I don't know. I'll have to sit and think about that. And yeah, so hopefully this was helpful. Hopefully it wasn't all over the place, but, just to recap a little bit, like, these automatic negative thoughts that can happen when maybe you're in a depressive episode, or maybe even not, doesn't totally matter, but all of these like floods of negative thoughts that happen, how can we overcome them? How can we sort of get through them and see that they're not the truth? We can have some self-compassion for ourselves. And to learn how to have self-compassion as the default instead of the automatic negative thoughts, we can practice self-compassion, and we can use this exercise to practice self-compassion. So, if you take anything from today, try to have a little bit more self-compassion for yourself. Because I think when we are able to have more compassion for ourselves, and we're able to empathize with ourselves and not beat ourselves up when we're feeling down or depressed, and to have that compassion, it can help not keep us stuck. It can help us get out of that quicker and move on to whatever it is that we need to do, and whatever work we need to get done, or whoever we need to be there for other people. It can help us get back to ourselves quicker. So hopefully this was helpful. I appreciate you for listening. And one call to action again. I have 96 subscribers on YouTube at the moment of recording this. I'm almost at 100. If you haven't subscribed on YouTube, working towards our purpose, if I can ask you to do that, I would appreciate that. And yeah, and also have a little self-compassion for yourself today. And thank you for listening. I think this is all I have, and I will see you on another episode real soon.